I am honored and ecstatically happy today to introduce to you my dear friend first, and secondly, partner, colleague, comrade, Dr. Neil Harris, who is the principal of ATEC High School and the founder of the Urban Mosaic Center for Social Justice in Brooklyn, New York. If you don't know who this great man is, he has been absolutely instrumental in supporting us at the Chandani Scholarship Fund, where we bring youth from America to India once a year for the past 5 years to experience mindfulness and diversity. From the first time I had the honor and privilege of meeting Dr. Harris around 2 years ago, it was an immediate understanding and acknowledgement that we were cut from the same cloth, and he just understood what we were doing with the Chandani Scholarship Fund, and he implemented and included his school, the Department of Education, the superintendent of New York City to come on board with us. And we've been so fortunate to work with you, Dr. Harris. And this year, especially on our 5th consecutive trip to India, right before or during actually the onset of this pandemic, we were fortunate enough to be with each other in India, and you got to experience firsthand what you had been supporting and made come to fruition. And thank yous will never be enough throughout this lifetime for your trust and for your support. And I look forward to continuing our work together. And today's topic is so instrumental and so important, because when I was in India with you, I came to understand that you are a very revolutionary, well-read activist in your own life who is bringing such change to the education system in New York City, in America, in the world, and to discuss the principles of this change and this dynamic revolution that is happening in our world today, with or without our consent, is a total privilege. And I'd like first to start asking you to introduce yourself, give us a brief summary of your background, who you are, and why it is you do what you do. Dr. Harris.
So first, let me begin by saying, Chandani, thank you for having me. I consider this should be a lifelong connection and relationship that we've built here. I appreciate you and your foundation for what they have done for our students. And again, as you said earlier, I had the pleasure of going to India myself this year, and I just want to again for a wonderful, life-changing opportunity. So again, I'm a native New Yorker, born and bred in New York City, and I believe that that was really the impetus for why I went into education, which is now almost 20 years that I've actually been in education. And after a small stint of teaching at the graduate level and being a professor, I found the need to come back into the school system to kind of reclaim what I think my primary focus is, and that's really concentrating and focusing my time and effort to make sure that young Black and brown boys are successful, and that I bring the knowledge, the tools, the resources, and the skill sets that are necessary for them to really be successful in our society, and not just our society, but globally. So that is my mission. By being in education, it also caused me to start a Center for Social Justice, because I believe that there is no true education in certain contexts without there being a social justice initiative. I got to ATEC almost 2 years ago, and that was my mission, to make sure that I could help turn this school that was slated as a failing school to a school that would thrive. And I'm happy to report in this short amount of time, we're on the right road to doing that, and we have been able to do that. So again, I feel that that is my purpose. I feel that when it comes to young people, it is my job to pour out everything that I possibly have to make sure that I can somehow even the playing field.
I'd love to hear a brief summary of your upbringing. I know that before you went back to education, you were in finance, and growing up as a Black African-American male, if you could give us a short synopsis of what that was like to lead you to the world of finance before you went back to education, to your roots.
Yeah, so I wish I could state that I had an atypical story, but unfortunately, for many Black families, it's more of a typical story. I was raised in the Bronx, New York. I was raised by a single parent in the housing projects. So by all definition and by statistics, I would be considered a poor Black man. I would say I didn't realize until I became an adult that I was poor, and I would attribute that to the upbringing of my mother, who, although we didn't have a lot of money at the time, took her time to expose me to many things and also instill in me the importance of getting a good education. So again, grew up in the Bronx, New York, was educated in New York City high school, in New York City public schools. My mother died suddenly when I was a senior in high school. And that particular time when she died, it was 2 months before I graduated from high school. And I'm glad that I still was I did not give up, and I still was able to graduate from high school. Although I had a teacher at the time who failed me for economics in the second marking period because I went to my mother's funeral. The other extension to this story is that I also had a high school guidance counselor who never had me fill out a college application. So while I graduated at the top of my high school class, I was a young Black man whose mother, who recently died, who was getting out of high school without a plan. I think that in and of itself was one of the reasons, or part of the reasons, that I went into education, because I realized that that there's a better job that needs to be done when it comes to dealing with people who have some of the labels that I had on my life. And if teachers and those who are in the school system don't understand what local parenti really means, is that you're more than just an educator and you're more than just another adult, but you actually assume the role of being parent. And we need more educators such as that to be able to make sure that we don't just teach, but we build these bonds and relationships, and we give these students what they really need to be successful in life. So I go from there, and I kind of managed to get my way to Connecticut, to go to University of Connecticut. I go to college. I go to quite a few universities. And then I realized that because I also went to school, my major in school was like accounting, so I was good with numbers. My mother did the same thing, so I kind of followed in her footsteps, and I was really numbers. That lasted for a while. I believe I was successful at that. I believe that I had a good career that I really liked to do. But one day I realized that what we call now ATEC, or a term we use in ATEC, which is called the existential crisis. When you look at the existential crisis, it really speaks to, like, why are you here? Some people will also label that term as purpose. And I knew that all while I was good with numbers, there was more to life for me. And I was kind of posited in a position where I asked for a raise and they wouldn't give me a raise. That was my turning point, and I went and applied. I already started graduate school to be a school counselor. But at that point, I decided that I went into teaching, became a special education teacher, because we know there's an overrepresentation of Black males in special education. I also was a social studies teacher as well. And there began my trajectory in the school system, where, of course, I taught for quite a few years. And then I became assistant principal for many years, which then led to becoming a principal of the school. My whole entire teaching career has been in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm unapologetically proud of that, because I do believe that I don't want to work in a system where everything works, or work in a district where everything is great. I want to go to the places where I feel that I could have the most impact, and that's how I wound up in Brooklyn as a principal. I leave the Department of Education for 5 years, as I said, and ran a teacher education program at Long Island University. And again, that was fulfilling, where I taught teachers. I ran a program for teachers who were becoming a part of, were getting into the profession. So I really feel that I had that ability to help pour into them, to help them understand how to deal with these marginalized populations, only to receive a phone call while I was teaching that asked me would I come back, as I stated before, to support another school, which is what I did. So I believe I'm back where I'm supposed to be. I'm back where I feel the most empowered. And I feel the most fulfilled. I often tell people I think I'm one of the most fortunate people in the world because I actually get paid to do something that I really love to do. And there's so many people in the world that work because obviously we have to take care of ourselves and we have other responsibilities and obligations that we're trying to obtain. But they pay me to be me. And that is like the greatest compliment, the greatest drive, even in this pandemic, which is just crazy for all of us, stressful for all of us. But I actually get paid just to really be me. So I don't have to read about it. I don't have to study up on it. I can actually just really live me and view every single student that I now come in contact with and treat them like I wish I had been treated when I was in high school as well. So that's kind of my long trajectory of that, and then going to school and getting just a few degrees in order to kind of supplement, because I don't just want to be a practitioner. I think part of this job that we do requires a sense of research, a sense of inquiry, a time of reflection, which is what India helped me with as well. So I think that's like, as I look at it, the overarching view, I think that education is probably one of the most important jobs on the planet, because it produces everyone else that's great. They all start in a school, and the right school can kind of thrust you into the unknown where there's limitless possibilities, or the wrong school and the wrong individuals can keep you in this caste-like paradigm where whatever your parents are, that's where you would be. And that's pretty much what life is going to be for you. And the experience, and you taught me a lot about even when we were in India, I don't believe that you have to stay where you were born. I don't believe that what happened to your parents or possibly your grandparents hasn't necessarily happened for you. There are limitless possibilities. And if I'm able to do that, then I believe that I'm halfway doing my job.
That's fantastic, Dr. Harris, to hear that. And, you know, to hear about sort of this place that you're at after working overboard and consistently for so many years, despite all challenges, to bring you to a place of expertise where it's almost like unconscious awareness of who you are and what it is that you're sharing with the children within the framework of the education institutions in America. And also at the same time being humble to the fact that as a doctor, as a scholar, that you're constantly researching and educating and extending your knowledge and your experience really emulates the kinds of role models we need in our institutions today in the modern world. Which brings me to asking you the question of how you are singularly designing a unique cultural approach within the educational system that exists today. I know that there was something that you were going to try and start to incorporate into the school system regarding wellness and regarding the idea of existential crisis, which is a term that's usually used classically for middle-aged people that sort of are like too spoiled with their lives and have this crises and you know, have a midlife crisis and buy Porsches and go to Las Vegas. However, you're very intelligently addressing an existential crisis that actually is capable for us to come across at a young, ripe age. And I think within high school, we actually do go through an existential crisis that has never been spoken of or focused on around institutions and governance of learning institutions. Can you comment on that and what it is that you're doing in your school structure that is accommodating that or addressing that?
Yeah, well, I think the first point is, well, you said singularly, and yeah, I take credit as leading, but of course, it takes some really great people around you and real great people that are connected with you, that really help pull the best out of you. So again, I have really been blessed just to have some really great people around me, that are able to be like thought partners, and those who kind of help you flesh out these great ideas, um, that hopefully will, create these movers and these shakers. So when I think about the existential crisis, again, I went into teaching after I had already had another career. Again, these aha moments that we have. And like you said, many times we have these aha moments too late, or later in life. And I thought about the idea, wouldn't it be great to create a space? So maybe middle school, you're beginning to dream slightly, but then by the time you get to high school, that's like that last stop right before you really hit the real world, I would say, the last stop before life really begins to close in on you. And wouldn't it be great to create a space where students and staff members alike could enter into this dialogue and this sense of research inquiry around, like, what am I here for? Like, what am I good at? So look at like their talents and look at their interest, um, and look and expose them, because I also believe part of dreaming and understanding who you are also comes with exposure. They have to be able to visit other places and travel abroad and have experiences outside of their very homogeneous communities, where they're allowed to, and not just TV, which is a piece of it, but these real world experiences, and then begin to connect the dots. So, part of what we're looking to create here, even in our school, is this idea that we create spaces, these very safe spaces where they're free to discuss, what they are inquisitive about and what they like and what they think they might do, and create this forum where everyone's able to share that, and even bring in guests and other people to share, and our staff members share, and we share our stories, and begin, not that they have to nail it and not that they have to get it right on the first try, but begin the conversations of, again, of this word I just love to use, about possibilities. um, what can I be? What can I do? And of course, money is a part of it, especially dealing when we talk about the intersection of poverty, and we talk about the intersection of class. We understand that money does play a role, because when you don't have money, there is this, obviously, this innate desire that one day you want to have money. So again, sometimes we have people that will push towards careers and doing things that are just going to make them money, only to have this crisis later on and say, yeah, I'm making the money, but I'm not fulfilled. There's one thing about being happy, but I think there's a difference between happiness and fulfillment, or just being okay and complacent, or dealing with complacement, or dealing with being fulfilled. I think when you are fulfilled, that of course we need money, but it comes, your gratification comes more from than you just getting a paycheck. And again, I echo the sentiments I shared earlier, that you can also make money and still be who you are purposed to be. And that's another example that I show. Like, it took a while, and of course, education doesn't pay you a whole lot, but you can, and make a reasonable amount. And then also, again, the other part of what I do is not just what I do in school, but if I'm going out and I'm speaking, and I'm going out and I'm hosting other events, while sometimes there is a price tag attached to that, again, it doesn't become about the money. So you don't chase money. And when you really come into the fullness of you, money begins to chase you. So again, just those very, I would say, I don't want to oversimplify, but just some of those basic principles, and just to have an actual school building that teaches you more than multiplying polynomials, and teaches, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with any of that. But again, to create this space where we're dealing with real world issues. If I could just share with you, one of our final projects that we're doing this year, um, is about the pandemic, and how the pandemic has impacted communities of color very different than it has communities, white communities. And, you know, so they live it every day. So the fact that we can even begin to have these conversations about the death rates and how healthcare is different, and how they don't have access to quality healthcare, and sometimes not having access to quality foods or having money to buy quality foods, and how the fast food restaurants are more aligned to economically what they're able to purchase than what Whole Foods is, right? So this is their reality. And the fact that they want to have a conversation or ask those questions like, well, why is this happening in our community? And then once you get past the why, we want to create these little revolutionaries, the term we used earlier, that they would not only want to know why, but they would want to do something about it in very small ways, maybe in the beginning, and maybe in very great ways later on in life. So again, that's why we really are focusing on, again, the shift that we're doing in our school to make sure that we begin to have changed some of the shape of education. I'll just lastly say this, is that, again, for many years, it was about the school to prison pipeline. And again, that was one of the other impetus that really started me in my social justice journey. But I believe now that I'm not, the pipeline that the system has created is so large and it's so intentional. I don't know if I want to stop that pipeline or if I just want to create another one. Mm-hmm. So this idea of, I understand big business, I understand politics, I understand bureaucracies, and they're really intentional. So black kids fail because it was intended for them to fail. Education is only designed to educate certain people. It's not designed to educate everyone. So that system works. So do I try to fix that system or try to create another system? And that's what I try to do every single day as I walk into my building, is to collaborate with my peers to figure out how do we operate. And I could be a private school, and that would be a way out. I could possibly be a charter school, and that might give me a little bit more autonomy, but I'm shooting for the goal. I want to remain a public school and be able to find, because most students will never have an opportunity to be in charter school. Most students will never have an opportunity to go to private schools. Most of our kids are going to have to go to public school. How do we make the change within public school structures? And again, that is at the forefront every time I walk in the building every morning.
Well, I think that's as progressive as it gets, Dr. Harris, because the days of guerrilla warfare with pioneers and revolutionaries like Malcolm X and, you know, Che Guevara, who had all the right reasons to go out there, even the suffragette movement for feminism, it had its time and its place. But today, overthrowing a system that is so intrinsically almost part of a DNA that we've grown into, I feel in alignment with you that in order to create change, we have to be very Machiavellian about it and almost befriend the system in order to be able to work through it. And that for me actually seems to be the higher road anyway, because what's happening is that, especially in the road of education, what we're doing is we're trying to create change by communicating new patterns of thought and conduct within a system that's already engaged in doing that. So instead of being adversarial or in a state of boycotting a system where it creates prolonged conflict and has a really high fail rate, like the Roman Empire was extreme and it didn't last, having this new dialogue of working within the system and creating inclusivity within the system, I think is the most revolutionary today. What do you think was the singular most profound I know this is a big question, but I'm just going to throw it out there because I think we have a very short time, so I want to get to some points. What do you think was the singular most important experience you had bringing your children to India with us, for this experience of a fish out of water experience where the kids get to sort of see themselves in light of themselves through a different lens?
Well, that's kind of hard for me to pinpoint the one experience. So let me just kind of frame, I guess, some of my perceptions or paradigms before I'm a history teacher, so I understood a little bit about India. Of course, we teach about the caste system, and we teach those things. And I also understood its diversity in religion as well. And then, of course, I knew it was a yoga festival, which was kind of like the highlight or why we were there. Being a very spiritual man as well, and again, very inquisitive. I'm always, I don't shy away from difference. So just because people are different, don't necessarily believe like I believe, or different from me, I always attempt to befriend, and so that I can understand more about other people. I think if anything that we need, again, to be successful or impactful in this world is empathy. And it's hard to empathize with people that you don't know and you really don't understand. So I definitely, and I believe for our students as well, it's supposed to be a cultural awakening. Again, we're kind of clear who we are, but let's visit people who are not like us, and let's be totally immersed into their culture. And as you know, we were totally immersed in their culture. And I'll just be honest with the viewers as well. I struggled a little bit with the immersion into the culture. I definitely have been Americanized in many ways, and so I think it was humbling. What I heard from not only from me but from the students, it gave a newfound appreciation for what we currently have and our way of living. And again, because we also we were met with many people who would be considered poor by any standard. It just, again, caused you to be very empathetic. Even the kids, like, they wanted to give and they wanted to help. So just being able to do that, I think that was impactful. Believe it or not, even sitting in some of the sit songs, that it was a place to be really reflective. And then, of course, as you know, we met
Muji
Baba, who, again, I'm attracted to knowledge and wisdom, and to be able to sit with a man who he was my senior, but obviously we might differ in maybe some religious beliefs, but we have there are always commonalities, and we had this common connection that that we were a lot more similar than we were different. And I think if people would engage in more excursions and more conversations like that, we would feel there was more things that really bring us together than really divide us. And then we also met a young man, Prince EA, who we're looking to get for our graduation speaker this year. And again, another connection of, I had to meet him in India to then go search him out in America to realize the crazy work that this young man is doing right in the country. So he's been in America all this time, and I had not had the privilege to meet him in America, but that intersection happened in India. Again, and just profound. So I think the experiences of realizing that we're a whole lot alike. And this idea of, I think we've had this conversation about the greatest force or the greatest part of you is making sure you understand that it doesn't reside in anybody else, but it really resides inside of you. and again, that speaks to the message that we give to our kids, is that, you know, you really have the power to shape your own world. I just need you to dig deep and pull everything out that's on the inside of you that can make this happen. And I just want to say this last point, Shadani, that kind of connects a little bit to the last question, but I think it's important to note here. If we go back into colonialism and how education was shaped, it was shaped so that we were in a manufacturing time, and so we taught kids to go out and to make and to build. But I'm reading this book now that speaks to we're going through another industrial revolution, and the pandemic heightened that. You know, who mails their bills off anymore? You know, and, now we're in virtual almost 24/7 now because of the pandemic. And going through industrial revolution, if we look at those who are really successful and look at the trends, it's not about being a manufacturer, or really, not that there's nothing wrong with using their hands and using your hands, but we need creative innovators, and we need a school that's going, if you want to work with your hands, I'm okay with you working with your hands as well. But we look at where jobs are going to be in the future. I don't want to set you for a job that's going to not be here in 5 years. We need to teach, we want critical thinkers who are creative, who are innovators. You know, you look at the tech companies and look at these people, yes, they do make millions of dollars as well, but they actually, again, use their brain to pull out ideas. And they have these downloads that are in their minds that they get together and they start sometimes very meagerly, and then they create these great empires. Wouldn't it be great for us, but typically it's for the privileged. Typically, you know, the trajectory and that alignment comes from the privileged and those who have access to great education. All colleges aren't the same, all universities aren't the same, so that they have these inroads that many poor kids, many Black kids, many Black young men, my school's 95%, 90% Black men, Black young men. So they would not be able to access those spaces just because of the system, right? But what happens if we give them access, whether it be a trip to India, or whether it be, again, just shaping education in our building differently? Why do we keep having kids memorize? It's called Google now. You don't have to memorize. And even us who are a little bit older, we remember less because we're not required to remember. Our minds are not trained now, because anything we forget, we pick up our phone. And in 2 seconds, we can have instant download of information. But we haven't changed the educational system to match this revolution, to match this shift, to match this change. So I don't want you coming to my school and just having to memorize all the facts, because you can access that really, really quickly. What I want you to do, and like state assessments, you know, which I want you to be able to be really creative and innovate and start your own, build your own, create your own, build upon something that's already been done. And not just have to be somebody, you know, you can be a worker, and we start as workers, but you could also be a boss. And that's the type of hope I would like to leave. And I know I'm running on, if you just let me say this, but I watched Michelle Obama's documentary. And what amazed me about it, and it was not only, of course, it was inspiring, but it kind of gave me a push. How could someone who's not necessarily a sports figure, entertainer, fill a stadium? Of course, she was the first lady of the United States, but her product is hope. Like, she markets this product, and there's all races, all genders, all classes are sitting in this one space, and she's telling her story. But in every intersection of her story, she's pouring out hope into people's lives. That if I could become the first lady of the United States, you can become anyone you want to be. And yes, these were some of the conditions, These were some of the hurdles. These were some of the setbacks. This is what made me cry. This is the struggles that we went through, but I did it. And now I feel like I have a responsibility to take that and now give back. Isn't that who we want to create as global citizens? Isn't that who we want to represent, not just the United States, but just, again, globally represent the world? And if we had more people that were like that, of course, we would live in a much different world, and not in this capitalistic society where it's the have and have nots, and make it a place where even if you do have, well, we all, let me put it this way, make it a place where we all have the potential to have.
I think everything that you've said is contemporary and relevant, and we are in a state of reflection and change during this time, not only from the pandemic, but from the second industrial revolution, which is the information revolution, which is the technological revolution that's happening right now, where we have artificial intelligence that's already started implementing itself in ways that are a lot more clever than we are. And what we do and say and think and create will inevitably shape artificial intelligence that will be able to shape this, well, is shaping this world for better or for worse. So what you say is very poignant and timely and ties in so beautifully now with sort of what Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world, which is sort of where role models are at now. It's not do as I say and do as I do type of thing, like being the change in front of kids, in front of society, in front of institution, in front of political agendas. And that brings me to sort of my life's work, which has been dedicated to the foundation of all that you speak of, which starts with our integrative wellness that is somehow bypassed or taken for granted or neglected or overlooked or rushed through or misunderstood even in today's modern age, and to bring the focal point back to the details of our lives, to the awareness of the utilitarian aspects of our lives, from getting us A to B, from what we put in our bodies to how we interact with one another, with what goes on through our minds, with being present to ourselves, being present with one another, with understanding the foundations of cause and effect with regards to what we do as soon as we get up in the morning and what we do the last thing we do before we go to sleep, and incorporating that as a foundation for building this house or this new paradigm that we speak of. And I know that you graciously took my invitation of experimenting with our life-changing liver cleanse program that's based on Ayurveda, which is the natural healing science of India, which I'm a practitioner of, and you just underwent that. And I want to know what compelled you to accept that invitation, A, and B, what orchestrated you to implement this 14-day sort of challenging liver cleanse program after you came back from India with the onset of this pandemic and all that's on your shoulders as a leader of a school right now?
Well, I'm going to start back again with the experience in India. And again, I may have even been, I won't say cynical, but again, I went to learn. But I think being in that space again kind of opened my mind up more than maybe I had even realized while I was there. As you know, I wasn't on a hunger strike, but I had some challenges eating the food in India. And
you say you didn't like the food, Dr. Harris. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I didn't like mostly anything in India, and you were worried about me. It's like you have to eat to stay alive, and so I kind of may do. But what I think was heightened, I always knew this, but I think again, sometimes you have to enter the different spaces just to kind of like be checked sometime, and kind of get like this revelation, and was that regardless of your beliefs about creation, like there's this alignment between when humans were created, the earth was created, and it wasn't created as like this dichotomy or these very separate things. It was supposed to be this type of harmony and alignment. And again, we look at nationalism, capitalism, we look at what goes on in big business, and then also what you have access to, as I spoke to early, and access to healthcare. But you know, why are we having these health challenges? Why? And again, we know kind of like where it stems from, but it kind of gets us away from like many people that have pre-existing conditions in the pandemic. They're the ones that are being, you know, they were more highly to receive the virus than others. So again, you know, we understand why, how we got here, but I think we have a responsibility, and the pandemic kind of reinforced that, to make sure like you're healthy and you take care of yourself. And that could be like night and day for you, you know, and that could be the deciding factor. And then also, you know, sometimes with our schedules, we run so much and we're so hectic. And I think the pandemic, some people, and of course it's disheartening with all the deaths. And of course, you know, that's just a horrible situation. But I also feel like it was like an unveiling as well. So it's not just the pandemic and the death, which is horrible, but there is this sense of unveiling, sense of reflection, sense of, hey, like what's really going on here. And then you and all of us experience it in very different ways. But also this idea of, so now what are you going to do, like not just to survive a pandemic, but what are you going to do, to live better, to eat better, to prolong your life, and kind of bring this harmony back. I mean, again, it doesn't take a rocket science to know that, you know, what you put in is what comes out. So again, the earth is there, um, at our disposal for us to, you know, utilize it to, you know, medication is big business. You know, it, you'll make more money by creating maintenance drugs than you will by creating something that heals somebody, right? That totally will heal them. So all that's big business, and then we have to take those pollutants that hopefully help us get rid of another issue, and this becomes this very vicious cycle. The liver cleanse. So you suggested it. We did a lot of walking in India too. We got a lot of exercise in India. And again, Shintani, I don't believe I knew about your scholarship from, but I didn't even know about your wellness center. We hadn't really discussed that. So obviously we got into the conversation in India, and you kind of planted the seed. And little did I know, also when we got back to the pandemic, they were saying that you had to build up your immune system, but you had already instructed us before I had to go to India, all the stuff I had to take. So um, Corona or COVID-19 didn't know I already came down with a very strong immune system because I had been taking all the stuff that you told us to take. Um, so again, now being home every single day, really can't go out, I could slow down, I could breathe, I could think, I could reflect, and I can make some serious life changes that sometimes you wouldn't make because of the hustle and bustle. And so again, decided to do it. Um, and I don't want to do a total TV commercial for you, but I
Plug.
I
It's
feel,
not really a plug.
I,
It's like,
I feel different. So some benefits, weight loss is a benefit. So that's good. I feel different. I believe my thinking was clearer. And it also has prompted me. So I haven't turned into a strict vegan, but it's a very strict vegan diet. And I managed to find my way into eating things that I actually enjoy, even being a vegan for 14 days. And again, it becomes discipline as well. And then now that I've been off it for a week, a little bit more than a week that I've been off it, um, it felt just seamless going right into a very similar regimen. Not totally, but a very similar regimen. Just being very mindful of what I'm doing, incorporated exercise into it now as well. Um, and believe that ultimately, success is a sum of decisions, sum total of your decisions. And I don't want to be considered intellectual that has a short lifespan. I don't want to be considered like this caring principal, or caring educator. But I have to take 6 or 7 pills every day in order for me to, thank God I don't. But for like, so it's all of those things that say, if you can discipline yourself to work, you can discipline yourself to read, you can discipline yourself to research. You've been in school seems like more than half your life, and you pass all these classes and you got all these. All of that took discipline for you to be able to do that. And then if you enter a global stage and a global arena, again, there's marketing, and again, people see you before they hear you as well. So all of that becomes this package that you got to really think about. And again, not that you kind of do it for people, but you want the stamina and you want to have be in good health. And I want my kids to have grandkids, and I want to see them, and I want to play with them, and I want to work as long as I can, and do as much work as I possibly can do. And this pandemic showed us it doesn't have any names. You were here one day and people were gone the next day. I had kids on ventilators, and I had their parents have died, and I can't go see about them, and I can't go make sure they're okay. And I have to rely on telephone and emails and a virtual response just to make sure that they're okay. If that's not a wake-up call for us really figuring life out and making the best decisions that we can make, I really don't know what is. So, I won't find the cure necessarily for the COVID-19 virus, but I think I do have part of the cure to really help young people and older people as well. But of course, my focus is younger, to help people at least get into the habit of being reflective thinkers about what they do, and be very purposive of setting destinations and goals and achieving them. And I think if I'm able to do that much, and I'm able to be healthy and be able to do that a little longer, then it's worth me tonight having a salad with a little tuna for my dinner, or having my blueberry smoothies with a little almond milk, and then this great powder that I have, this superfood that you'd even notice I ordered another bag of it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. That will help me do it. And again, I'm not killing. It's not killing me. It's not painful. It's something that I'm glad I'm doing. Again, and anything that adds to just life being better, then why not do it? So that's my connection with, again, us connecting. And the India trip, you just sharing it with me and not even thinking by any means that I would, be doing it. And then when I get into that reflective space, I say, hey, Shanani, I want to try this. And then you making it happen. So I have a few people already that are ready. I know, and we got to get you come back to school, because I want to share. I mean, they've already commented, so they already kind of know, but I want to share and kind of have you host the workshop again.
In person.
Yeah, because it's a little different once. Oh, she's selling something. We have that, and it's another thing for you to actually know someone that has used the product, and it's making you a better you. So there's not a price tag you put on that, and there's and again, I know for a fact it's not a gimmick. So and I'm not just doing the plug. I don't want any percentages off of that. It's just that that detoxing, it really impacts everything from the top to the bottom, and it's physical, psychological, it's emotional. And it definitely has impacted. Now you gotta do is try to keep it up until I do the cleanse again, and then I'll be a pro at it. So that won't be a problem.
You're already you did. You're. The thing is that we're both in education, Dr. Harris. You're in education as far as the school system is concerned, with the faculties of knowledge and wisdom, of the mind, and the visions of our conduct. And I educate people with the integration of the foundation of coming back home to be able to utilize the propensity of our mind and our conduct to the highest potential. Because if the body isn't balanced, like you said, there is a cessation to what we can actually potentially achieve. So bringing that existential education to the kids within the frameworks that are afforded to us in the school systems, in the charter school systems, in any institution that we have the ability to really communicate and infiltrate young people's minds and actions, we have an accountability to do so. And the best way to do it is to be a living example of that, which is what I admire about you so much, is that you are a learned man, a scholarly man. However, you're constantly pushing the envelope to learn new things and disrupt old patterns and paradigms that seemingly don't work anymore. So we need more and more people like yourself in our world, in our government, in our educational system, in our spiritual organizations, in our households, in our communities, to really make this happen. However, in order for us to really, first of all, achieve our own potential, and second of all, really make a difference in our communities, we have to be the change we want to see in the world by doing, each of us, what we need to do, living it, and then sharing it with others. I want you to tell us how you are going to implement wellness. As far as the existential crisis, I understand. How are you going to incorporate wellness after you go back to school, knowing what you've learned during this pandemic?
So what I think, and again, I'm looking at a very traditional, non-standardized curriculum. So again, of course, you have like traditional health curriculums, and we teach you some about taking care of your body, maybe reproductive things, and that's the focus. But I think, again, some of what I've learned, those things just need to be taught. Like, people do better when they know better. So, I mean, this is not something that, again, if we go back to the communities that our school serves, my school serves, and again, my school sits in a gentrified community, as you know. So in the community that they attend every day, there is access to many areas where they can learn how to eat better and learn more about just well-being together. But they don't live in those communities. They just come to our space and then they go back to their communities. So again, we can't automatically expect through osmosis about what they see on TV that they're going to know about why it's important for you to take care of your body, and how by taking care of your body can eliminate many of the diseases that you might have seen impact your family, or just impact your community, because you're going to have to know someone. And it's traditional that when we look at diabetes and high blood pressure and things like that, we know that some of it could be hereditary, and some of it's obviously the intake of the food that we take in. So the idea that we create this space where the learning can occur. So again, and I'm a prime example. Because of my indoctrination, I came to India and I almost starved to death, right? And I almost made myself sick because I had not even been introduced to that or even been open to that. And again, you can have variations of it, but our kids would have never ever been indoctrinated to that until they are exposed to it. So this idea of, and again, it's not about, I don't believe it's about telling or demanding, it's about discovery. So I'm going to give you information, and I'm going to present another narrative. I'm going to present something that you might not know and might not heard of. And then I'm still going to, I don't want to be controlling. I still want to let you to kind of navigate the course of your life. And even what doesn't take immediately sometimes takes down the road as well. So again, we also have responsibility though, that if we're going to teach people to eat better or just to take care of themselves, they have to have the access. I keep going back to knowledge is one thing and access is something else. So, or we got to teach them the rules of trade and or the tricks of the trade, right? And teach them how to do it even in their current environment. But most of all, just show the benefits. And so I can help show you what the benefits are. And again, the young people, so they're still going to be young people. And I want them to be young people. But this goes back to another one of my goals, like there are options. And I don't say that to be cocky, but I have options where I work. I can choose where I work. I can choose where I live. But there was a process and there were things that I had to do in order to get to the place of here's what someone's going to give me and someone's going to allow me to do versus this is what I need to do so that I can choose where I want to work. I haven't really looked for a job in almost 17 years. And it just happened, it happens to be that someone says, hey, I want you to come do this. And then I think you would be a good candidate for this. And I think and that's been my whole entire trajectory in education. I just showed up and someone said, I think you're the person for the job. So, I mean, I went to formalities, but I didn't really go through real interviews and because the real me showed up, I got to the right place at the right time. And I possessed what I needed to have in order to get the job done. And at one point it was just maybe experience. And at some point it had to become knowledge. It had to be education. And then the combination of both of them put together just allows you to arrive where you're supposed to be at the right time to intersect with people and individuals that help push you a little bit further and open other doors for you. That's if they can understand that's how that's the evolution cycle. If they can understand that everything is not binary, everything doesn't have to be black or white or yes or no, but then you open into these, there are shades of gray. There are these shaded areas. I'm reading this book now that was recommended that, option B, and all we have is the option A, but option B could be the gold mine. So never despise options, because I didn't get what I wanted and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to do. I might have been setting you up for option B, which is going to be the thing that's going to revolutionize your life. Option A was when I was in finance. That was my first choice. That was what I wanted to do, and I wanted to make money. I'm living in my option B, right? So just to teach those skills, those ways of thinking, those thought processes, those paradigms about never giving up, having tenacity, keep going no matter what, and understanding, I don't know, and I heard this the other day, and it really helped me. So I gotta wait till life calms down. I gotta wait for things to balance. People who have purpose, it never settles. You learn how to move within the unsettling. Everything doesn't just come together. You have just got to manage that even while it's going like this, to still manage to keep moving. Don't wait for everything to come in line, everything to come together, your money to be perfect, your marriage to be perfect, your kids to be perfect, your job to be perfect. No, it's going to go like this, but you are responsible, and your job is, while it's a little rocky, keep moving. Learn even in the worst of times to deal with it, but you got to fight and you got to move at the same time. And if it's malpractice if I don't teach that. It's malpractice for me to be an educator and not teach what's really life skills, versus standardization. So, yeah. So thank you for this conversation today.
Dr. Harris, this was monumental. I'm going to end our amazing conversation. We are moving into the age of neuroplasticity, which is creating new thoughts and patterns of thinking that will inevitably shape and reshape and redesign the world to be a better place, not just for you and I, but for everyone. It's been my absolute honor and privilege, and I can't wait for us to talk again.
Thank you, Shandani.